Hello, dear friend. Tonight I want to take you to a mysterious hotel, hidden away from the eyes of the world. A place where every room holds a story that has been waiting for years to be told. They call it the Midnight Hotel. So, lie back comfortably, gently close your eyes, and let's open its doors together. At exactly midnight, the hotel appeared on a road that had never existed before. Daniel had been driving for almost 6 hours when his car suddenly stopped. The engine went silent. He tried to start it again. Nothing. Outside, cold rain fell through the darkness. Daniel looked at his phone. No signal. The road behind him was empty. The forest around him was completely silent. Then, through the trees, he saw a warm, golden light. At first, he thought it was another car, but as he stepped out into the rain, he saw a massive hotel standing beyond the forest. Tall towers reached into the night sky. Hundreds of windows glowed softly. And above the entrance, a large sign read, "The Midnight Hotel." Daniel looked at his watch. 12:01 a.m. He had never seen the hotel before. He was certain of that. Yet something about the building felt strangely familiar. The rain became heavier. Daniel picked up his suitcase and walked toward the hotel. The enormous doors opened before he touched them. Inside, the lobby was warm and silent. A large chandelier hung above him. An old clock stood against the far wall. Its hands were frozen at exactly midnight. Daniel walked toward the front desk. No one was there. Then a small brass bell rang. Daniel froze. On the desk was a white envelope. His name was written on it. Daniel Morrow. He slowly picked it up. Inside was a small brass key. The number 217 was engraved on it. There was also a note. Daniel unfolded it. Only 4 words were written. "Welcome back, Daniel." He stared at the message. Welcome back? He had never been here before. At least, he thought he had never been here before. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Daniel looked toward the dark windows. The road was gone. There was only black forest and endless rain. So he picked up his suitcase and walked toward the stairs. The second floor was completely empty. A long red carpet stretched through the hallway. Daniel passed room 209, then 211, then 213. At the end of the hallway, he noticed a large window. He stopped. Outside, beneath the rain, a woman was standing beside his car. She wore a long white dress. Her face was hidden by the darkness. Daniel stepped closer to the glass. The woman slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the hotel. Daniel turned around. The hallway was empty. When he looked back, the woman had disappeared. Room 217 was at the end of the corridor. Daniel placed the key inside the lock. The door opened. The room was dark. A single lamp stood beside the bed. Daniel turned it on. Then he saw something lying on the desk. A photograph. He walked closer. His heart stopped. The photograph showed a young man standing in front of the Midnight Hotel. The young man was Daniel. But the photograph was old. Very old. In the corner, a date had been written. November 17th, 1978. Daniel slowly turned the photograph over. On the back, someone had written, "You have been here before." At that exact moment, the old clock downstairs began to strike midnight. One bell, then another, then another.
Daniel stood completely still. The sound seemed to travel through the walls. Then came a knock from the other side of his door. Daniel slowly turned. The knocking came again, once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice whispered from the hallway. "Daniel." He knew that voice. He had not heard it in 20 years, but he remembered it. It was his mother's voice. His mother had been dead since he was a child. Daniel took one slow step toward the door, then another. The voice whispered again, "Daniel." He reached for the handle, and just before his fingers touched it, every light in the room went out.
The room was completely dark. Daniel stood frozen beside the door. For several seconds he could hear nothing. Then came a soft sound, a slow breath, from the other side of the door. Daniel's hand remained close to the handle. He wanted to step away, but he could not. The voice came again. "Daniel." It was his mother's voice, exactly as he remembered it, soft, tired, and strangely gentle. Daniel closed his eyes. He remembered being a little boy. He remembered his mother singing quietly while washing dishes. He remembered the smell of coffee in the kitchen. He remembered the sound of rain against the windows. Then he remembered the night she disappeared. Daniel opened his eyes. The room was still dark. The voice whispered again, "Please open the door." Daniel slowly moved his hand away from the handle. "No," he whispered. The voice became quiet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then someone knocked again, this time much harder. Daniel stepped backward. The photograph on the desk suddenly fell to the floor. He looked down. The picture had changed. The young man standing in front of the hotel was gone. Now the photograph showed Daniel standing inside room 217. He was older, much older, and beside him stood a woman. Daniel stared at the picture. He did not recognize the woman, but she was holding the same brass key. The key marked 217. A cold feeling moved through Daniel's chest. Then the lights suddenly came back on. The door was still closed. The voice was gone. Daniel stood silently in the center of the room. He looked at the photograph again. The woman was still there. He picked it up. On the back, a new sentence had appeared. "She is waiting on the 3rd floor." Daniel looked toward the ceiling. The 3rd floor. He had no reason to go there. He should have left the hotel. But the strange thing was, he no longer wanted to leave. Something inside him was pulling him deeper into the building. Daniel placed the photograph in his coat pocket. Then he picked up the brass key. As he opened the door, the hallway was empty. The red carpet stretched into darkness. At the far end, the elevator doors were open. Daniel had not heard it arrive. He slowly walked toward it. Inside the elevator, there were 3 buttons: 1st floor, 2nd floor, 3rd floor. Daniel pressed the 3rd button. The doors closed. The elevator began to rise slowly. The lights above him flickered. Then the elevator stopped. Daniel looked at the doors. They opened. The 3rd floor was completely different. There was no red carpet, no warm golden light, only a long hallway covered in darkness. At the very end stood a single door. A small silver number was attached to it. 317. Daniel began walking. With every step, the air became colder. When he reached the door, he noticed something scratched into the wood. A name. Emily. Daniel stopped. Emily. That was his mother's name. He raised his hand.
Before he could knock, the door opened by itself. Inside was a small bedroom, a child's bedroom. There was a wooden bed, a small bookshelf, and a music box sitting on the table. Daniel knew that music box. He had seen it when he was a child. His mother had owned it. Slowly, the music box began to play. A soft, familiar melody filled the room. Daniel stood in the doorway. Then he heard a woman's voice behind him. "You took a long time to come back." Daniel turned. The hallway was empty. But when he looked inside the room again, a woman was sitting on the edge of the bed. Her back was facing him. Daniel stopped breathing. The woman slowly turned her head, and Daniel heard the voice he had been waiting to hear for 20 years. "Hello, Daniel."
"Hello, Daniel." The woman sat quietly on the edge of the old bed. Daniel could not move. The room was exactly as he remembered it. The wooden bookshelf, the small window, the blue curtains, and the music box on the table. But everything looked older now, covered in dust. The woman slowly turned toward him. Daniel stared at her face. For a moment, he saw the woman he remembered, his mother. Then the image seemed to change. She looked younger, then older, then young again, as if the room could not decide which memory to show him. Daniel took a slow step backward. "You're not real." The woman smiled sadly. "I know." Daniel's heart began to beat faster. "Then what are you?" She looked toward the music box. "A memory." The music continued playing, softly, slowly. Daniel remembered that melody. His mother used to play it every night when he was a child. He had not heard it since the night she disappeared. "Why are you here?" The woman looked at him. "Because you came back." Daniel shook his head. "I have never been here." The woman smiled. "You don't remember." Daniel looked around the room. The walls seemed to move slightly. The window showed a different view now. Instead of darkness, he could see a sunny garden. A small boy was running through the grass. Daniel recognized the boy. It was him. He was only 6 years old. His mother was standing beside him. She was laughing. Daniel stared at the memory. "I remember this." His mother looked at him. "You remember part of it." The scene changed. The garden disappeared. Now Daniel saw a long road. Rain fell across the windshield of a car. His mother was driving. Daniel was sitting in the passenger seat. He was crying. His mother kept looking at the rear-view mirror. "Where were we going?" Daniel whispered. His mother did not answer. The memory suddenly became dark. A bright light appeared ahead. Then everything disappeared. Daniel stepped backward. "What happened that night?" His mother looked at him. "That is what you came here to remember." Daniel felt a cold shiver. "I don't want to remember." The woman stood. "Everyone says that." She walked toward the door. Daniel watched her. "Where are you going?" "To show you." The hallway outside room 317 had changed. The long, dark corridor was gone. Instead, a narrow staircase led downward. Daniel looked at it. "That wasn't here before." His mother began walking. "The hotel changes for every guest." Daniel followed her. The staircase seemed to go down forever. There were no lights, only small candles placed along the walls. As they descended, Daniel began hearing sounds. A car engine, rain, a child crying. Then his mother's voice. "Don't look behind you." Daniel stopped.
What? His mother continued walking. Whatever you hear, don't look behind you. Daniel heard footsteps on the stairs above him. Slow footsteps. Someone was following them. He wanted to turn around, but he remembered her warning, so he kept walking. The footsteps became closer. Step, step, step. Daniel's breathing.
Daniel's breathing remained slow. He fixed his eyes on the faint glow of the candles ahead. One step, then another. The footsteps behind him continued, never rushing, never slowing, always matching his pace. His mother's voice drifted softly through the darkness. Keep walking. Daniel swallowed. Every part of him wanted to turn around. Every instinct begged him to look. But he remembered her warning. Don't look behind you. So he obeyed. The staircase stretched deeper beneath the hotel. The air became colder. The scent of old wood slowly disappeared. Now the air smelled like rain, fresh rain. The kind that falls just before midnight. The footsteps behind him suddenly stopped. Silence settled over the stairs. Complete silence. Daniel could hear only the quiet crackle of the candles. Then, a little girl's laughter echoed somewhere below. Soft, gentle, almost joyful. It lasted only a moment. His mother did not stop walking. Do you hear them? Daniel whispered. Yes. Who are they? They are memories. Daniel frowned. Memories don't laugh. His mother smiled without turning around. Some do. At last, the staircase ended. A long hallway waited beyond it. Unlike the rest of the hotel, this hallway was warm. Small lamps hung from the walls. Golden light shimmered across polished wooden floors. Paintings covered both sides of the corridor. Each painting showed a different guest. Some smiled, some cried, some simply stared. As Daniel walked past them, their eyes slowly followed him. He looked away. His mother stopped before one painting. It showed a young man standing outside the hotel during a heavy storm. A suitcase rested beside him. Daniel's heartbeat slowed. It was him, exactly as he had arrived earlier that night. How is this possible? His mother gently touched the frame. The hotel remembers everyone. Daniel reached toward the painting. The surface rippled like water beneath his fingers. Suddenly, the rain inside the painting began to move. The young Daniel lifted his suitcase, walked toward the entrance, opened the front door, and disappeared inside. The painting became still once more. Daniel stepped back. That already happened. His mother nodded. Yes. So why am I watching it? Because this hotel never forgets. They continued down the hallway. At the very end stood another door. Unlike room 317, this door had no number. Only a small silver key hung from its handle. Daniel picked it up. It felt strangely warm. Should I open it? His mother looked at him with quiet eyes. Only if you're ready. Ready for what? The truth. Daniel stared at the key. His hands trembled. I don't know if I want to know. Very few people do. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The hotel itself seemed to be waiting. Then, somewhere far above, the grandfather clock struck once. A deep sound rolled through the walls. The lamps flickered. The paintings slowly closed their eyes. The hallway became colder again. Daniel placed the key into the lock. It turned by itself. Click. The door opened only a few inches. Darkness waited beyond it. Not ordinary darkness, a darkness so deep it seemed to swallow the light around it. From somewhere inside, a familiar melody began to play. The same music box, the same gentle lullaby his mother used to play when he was a child. Daniel felt tears gathering in his eyes. "I remember this song." His mother smiled sadly. "I know." He took one careful step toward the open doorway. The melody grew louder, warmer, older, as if it had been waiting for him all these years. Then a quiet voice emerged from the darkness. Not his mother's, not the child's, his own. Older, wearier, filled with sorrow. It spoke only 6 words. "You should never have come back." Daniel stood frozen before the open doorway. The lullaby continued to drift through the darkness. Soft, gentle, almost welcoming. Yet the voice he had heard still echoed inside his mind. "You should never have come back." He looked at his mother. "Who said that?" She lowered her eyes. "You already know." Daniel shook his head. "No. You simply don't remember." The hallway became strangely quiet. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Daniel tightened his grip on the silver key. "I have to know." His mother stepped aside. "Then walk forward." He took a careful step into the darkness. The moment he crossed the doorway, everything changed. The cold vanished. Warm sunlight touched his face. Daniel blinked. He was no longer inside the hotel. He stood beside a quiet lake. The water reflected a pale evening sky. Birds drifted across the surface. A gentle breeze moved through the tall grass. Everything felt peaceful. Too peaceful. He looked around. Near the shore sat a little boy. The boy was carefully folding pieces of paper into small boats. Daniel recognized him immediately. It was himself, 6 years old. The child smiled without looking up. "I knew you would come." Daniel slowly approached. "Do you know me?" The boy nodded. "You're the version that forgot." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "What does that mean?" The child placed another paper boat onto the water. "It means you left me here." Daniel frowned. "I don't understand." "You weren't supposed to." The boats floated slowly across the lake. Each one carried a single written word. Hope, home, promise, remember. Daniel watched them drift farther away. "What is this place?" The boy looked toward the opposite shore. "The place where forgotten memories wait." Daniel followed his gaze. Across the lake stood the Midnight Hotel. It looked exactly the same. Silent, ancient, watching. "But I just came from there." The child smiled softly. "No. You came from the part of it that people can see." Daniel felt another chill. "There's more." "So much more." The peaceful breeze suddenly stopped. Clouds covered the sky. The water became perfectly still. Every paper boat froze in place. The little boy slowly stood. His expression had changed. He no longer looked happy. "They found us." Daniel looked around. "Who?" The child whispered. "The ones who erase memories." Before Daniel could speak, the lake began to ripple. Dark shapes appeared beneath the surface. 1, then 3, then dozens. They moved silently beneath the water. Too large to be fish. Too smooth to be human. Daniel opened his eyes. The lake had vanished. The dark figures were gone. Once again, he stood inside the Midnight Hotel. The hallway was silent. The paintings no longer watched him. Instead, Every portrait faced the wall, as though they were hiding from something. Daniel looked around. Mother? Only silence answered. He took another step. The wooden floor creaked softly beneath his feet. Near the wall rested a single paper boat. It looked exactly like the one from the lake. Daniel picked it up. Inside, someone had written a single sentence. Every memory has a door. Before he could read it again, the hallway trembled. A distant bell echoed through the hotel, one slow chime, then another. Footsteps followed, calm, steady. A man appeared at the end of the corridor. He wore a long black coat. His face remained hidden beneath a wide hat. In one hand, he carried an old lantern. Unlike the shadows at the lake, this lantern glowed with a warm, golden light. The stranger stopped. You found your first memory. Daniel tightened his grip on the paper boat. Who are you? The man answered quietly. A guide. To where? To the truth you buried. Daniel slowly shook his head. I buried nothing. The guide smiled. That is what every guest believes. He lifted the lantern. Golden light spread across the hallway. The walls slowly faded away. Daniel gasped. Below him appeared countless hotel rooms. Some guests were sleeping peacefully. Some stared through rain-covered windows. Others sat alone beside old photographs. Each room held a different story. A prison? Daniel whispered. The guide looked at him. No. A waiting place. For what? For acceptance. Daniel noticed one familiar room. Room 317. Its door stood open. Inside sat another Daniel, quietly listening to the music box. Daniel stepped back. That's me. Yes. Then who am I? The guide lowered the lantern. The one still searching. A cold breeze drifted through the empty corridor. The golden light began to fade. Far below, every hotel room opened its door at the same time. Soft whispers floated upward. Hundreds of voices, each calling a different name. Daniel listened carefully. Then one voice became louder than all the others. Daniel. His heartbeat quickened. Who is calling me? The guide remained still. They remember you now. Who? The keepers. Daniel frowned. The keepers of what? The guide looked into the darkness beyond the hallway. The keepers of forgotten time. The hotel suddenly became silent again. No whispers, no footsteps, only the sound of a single clock. Tick, tock. For the first time, time inside the midnight hotel had begun to move. Daniel stared into the darkness ahead. Somewhere beyond the next corridor, someone was waiting for him.
Daniel stood perfectly still. The slow ticking echoed through the endless hallway. Tick, tock. It sounded calm, almost comforting, yet every second made the hotel feel more alive. The wooden walls gave a quiet sigh. The lamps flickered gently. Somewhere, far away, a door slowly closed. Daniel looked at the guide. You said they remember me. The guide nodded. They never truly forgot. Daniel frowned. I still don't understand. You will. The guide turned and began walking. His golden lantern cast long shadows across the corridor. Daniel followed without another word. After several minutes, they reached a large circular room. There were no windows, no paintings. Only dozens of old clocks hanging on every wall. Large clocks, small clocks, wooden clocks, silver clocks. Every one of them showed a different time. Some moved forward, others moved backward. A few had stopped completely. Daniel slowly stepped inside. "What is this place?" The guide raised his lantern. "The Hall of Time." "Why are there so many clocks?" "Each one belongs to a guest." Daniel looked closer. Beneath every clock was a small brass nameplate. Hundreds of names filled the room. Some were faded with age, others looked almost new. His eyes suddenly stopped. One name stood alone. Daniel. His clock hung near the center of the wall. Unlike the others, it had no hands, only an empty face. Daniel walked toward it. "Why is mine empty?" The guide answered quietly. "Because your story is unfinished." Daniel reached out. The moment his fingers touched the cold glass, a memory flashed before his eyes. Heavy rain, a lonely road, his mother's frightened face, a pair of bright headlights, then a loud horn. Daniel pulled his hand away. The vision disappeared. He struggled to breathe. "I almost remembered." The guide nodded. "You are getting closer." Suddenly, one of the clocks began ringing. Then another, and another. Within seconds, every clock inside the hall was chiming together. The sound filled the room like rolling thunder. Daniel covered his ears. "What is happening?" The guide's calm expression disappeared for the first time. "They're coming." The lantern's golden flame flickered wildly. Long shadows stretched across the floor. They no longer matched the clocks or the guide. They were moving on their own. Daniel slowly looked down. His own shadow had begun walking away from him, step by step, toward a small black door hidden behind the clocks. It stopped, then slowly turned its head. Although it had no face, Daniel somehow knew it was smiling. The guide grabbed Daniel's arm. "Don't follow it." "But it's my shadow." "It no longer belongs to you." The tiny black door creaked open by itself. Cold air rushed into the hall. A whisper floated from the darkness, soft, patient, waiting. "Daniel," the guide tightened his grip. "If your shadow enters first," he looked directly at Daniel, "you may never find your way back."
Daniel could not take his eyes off the shadow. It stood perfectly still beside the small black door, waiting. The whisper came again.
"Daniel."
His own voice, older, colder. The guide tightened his grip on Daniel's arm. "Listen to me. If your shadow crosses that door before you do, it will carry away the part of you that still remembers." Daniel swallowed. "What is behind the door?" The guide looked at the darkness. "No guest has ever described it. They either return changed, or they never return at all." The shadow slowly reached toward the door. Its hand touched the black wood. The handle turned by itself. Click. A freezing wind rushed into the Hall of Time. Every clock stopped. The ticking disappeared. Silence fell over the room. Daniel felt his heartbeat become the only sound left in the hotel. His shadow stepped through the doorway, then vanished. The guide closed his eyes. "It has begun."
Daniel pulled away. I have to follow it. No. If you chase it with fear, you will lose yourself. Daniel looked toward the open doorway. Inside was only darkness, yet somewhere beyond it. The music box was playing again. The same gentle lullaby, the same melody his mother used to play every night. He couldn't ignore it. Without another word, Daniel stepped through the black door. Everything disappeared. No hallway, no clocks, no guide. Only endless white fog. The air felt strangely warm, like the first morning of spring. Daniel slowly walked forward. His footsteps made no sound. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours. Time no longer seemed to exist. Far ahead, a lonely train station emerged from the mist. It looked abandoned. An old wooden bench stood beneath a cracked clock. The clock showed 12:17, just like the grandfather clock in the library. A train waited beside the empty platform. Its lights glowed softly. Steam drifted into the quiet air. There was no conductor, no passengers, only silence. Daniel approached carefully. Written across the side of the train were 3 simple words. Last Memory Express. A quiet voice spoke behind him. You finally arrived. Daniel turned. His mother stood a few steps away. She looked exactly as she had before she disappeared. Not older, not younger, simply peaceful. He ran toward her. This time she did not fade. She gently held his hands. I've missed you. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Were you here all this time? She smiled sadly. I was waiting. For me? For the day you were ready. Daniel looked at the empty train. What is this place? His mother followed his gaze. This is where forgotten journeys end, and remembered ones begin. Daniel frowned. I still don't remember the accident. You will. But not all at once. She gently placed something into his hand. It was a small silver pocket watch. Its glass was cracked. Its hands had stopped at exactly 12:17. The night never ended, Daniel whispered. His mother nodded. Not for you. A loud whistle echoed across the station. The train doors slowly opened. Warm, golden light spilled onto the platform. Inside, Daniel could see dozens of empty seats, except one, near the last window. Someone was already sitting there. A man wearing a dark coat, his face hidden beneath a hat. The same guide. He looked directly at Daniel, then slowly pointed toward the empty seat across from him. His mother smiled. You must take the next part of the journey alone. Daniel hesitated. What if I can't? You can. What if I forget again? She gently touched his cheek. Then the hotel will find you. The train whistle sounded once more. The platform began to disappear into the fog. His mother's outline slowly faded. I don't want to lose you again, Daniel whispered. You never truly lost me. She smiled one last time. You only lost the memory. Daniel stepped onto the train. The doors closed softly behind him. Outside, the station vanished into white mist. Inside, the lights dimmed. The train moved without making a sound. Then, from the carriage ahead, someone knocked.
3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The guide slowly looked toward the closed door. For the first time, fear appeared on his face. He whispered only 4 words. It found us first.
Daniel did not move. The caretaker stood quietly at the end of the hall. His white gloves looked untouched by time. The brass key rested between his fingers. 317. The number caught the glow of the lantern. Daniel felt his heartbeat slow. "You know me," he whispered. The caretaker did not answer. He simply turned, then began walking down the corridor. Not a single footstep followed him. He seemed to glide across the wooden floor. The guide lowered his lantern. "You must decide." "Decide what?" "Whether to follow him." Daniel looked toward the endless hallway. "What happens if I don't?" The guide's voice remained calm. "The hotel will keep waiting." "And if I do?" "You may remember the night that brought you here." Daniel looked at the brass key one last time. Then he followed. The corridor felt different now. Longer, quieter. The walls were covered with faded wallpaper. Small lamps burned with soft golden light. Every door they passed carried the same number, 317. Daniel frowned. "That's impossible." "The hotel repeats what you refuse to face," the guide said. The caretaker finally stopped. He raised the key. A nearby door unlocked with a gentle click. It slowly opened. Inside was the same room. The old bookshelf, the blue curtains, the wooden bed, the music box resting on the table, exactly as Daniel remembered. Yet something was different. The room was alive. The curtains moved, though the windows were closed. The music box turned by itself. A soft lullaby filled the air. Daniel stepped inside. The caretaker remained outside, watching. The guide stayed in the hallway. "This part belongs to you." The door closed behind Daniel. The music stopped. Silence settled over the room. Then, a child's voice spoke. "You came back." Daniel turned. A little boy stood beside the window, 6 years old, holding the music box. It was himself. The child smiled gently. "I've been waiting." Daniel slowly approached. "I saw you before." The boy nodded. "In the garden." "And by the lake." "They were only pieces." Daniel looked around the room. "What is this place?" The child placed the music box on the table. "This is the last room you tried to forget." Daniel felt a chill. "I don't understand." "You will." The child opened the music box. Instead of music, voices filled the room. His mother's laughter, rain against glass, a car engine, then a loud horn. Daniel closed his eyes. The sounds became clearer. His mother's voice trembled. "Daniel, whatever happens, stay inside the hotel." His eyes opened. "The hotel?" The child nodded. "She wasn't talking about this building." Daniel stared at him. "What do you mean?" Before the boy could answer, a loud knock echoed through the room. Once, twice, 3 times. The music box snapped shut. The lamps flickered. The air became cold.
The little boy's smile disappeared.
They found this room.
Daniel looked toward the door. The old wooden handle was slowly turning. Not from the hallway, but from the inside, as if someone had always been in the room with them. The child stepped backward. His voice became almost a whisper.
Whatever happens,
don't let it hear your real name. The door creaked open, only an inch. A single black-gloved hand slowly reached through the darkness. The black-gloved hand remained in the doorway, perfectly still. Its fingers were unusually long, pale, almost lifeless. Daniel stepped back without making a sound. Beside him, the little boy whispered,
"Don't speak."
The room grew colder. The music box began to tremble on the table, very gently, as if something unseen had touched it. The door opened a little farther. Darkness waited beyond it. Not an ordinary darkness, one that seemed to breathe. Daniel felt the silver pocket watch become warm inside his pocket. Its slow ticking returned. Tick, tock. The black-gloved hand slowly withdrew. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice drifted into the room, soft, patient. Daniel. It sounded exactly like his mother. Daniel closed his eyes. He wanted to answer. He wanted to run toward the voice. The little boy quickly grabbed his hand.
"That's not her."
Daniel looked down. "How do you know?"
"Because she never calls you from the dark."
Silence returned. The room felt strangely empty again. Then the music box opened by itself. The gentle lullaby filled the air. This time, Daniel noticed something different. Hidden beneath the melody, someone was crying, very quietly, very far away. The little boy walked toward the window. He carefully pulled back the blue curtain. Daniel followed. Outside, the Midnight Hotel looked nothing like before. The hallway had disappeared. The garden was gone. Instead, endless hotel corridors stretched beneath a moonless sky. Hundreds of doors lined both sides. Every door carried the same number, 317.
"They're multiplying,"
the boy whispered. Daniel frowned. What does that mean?
"The hotel is confused."
Why?
"Because you're remembering too quickly."
The pocket watch ticked again. Its hands moved forward. 12:22. A warm flash crossed Daniel's mind. He saw his mother standing in the hotel lobby. She wasn't frightened. She was arguing with someone. A tall man wearing black gloves. Daniel couldn't see his face, only his voice. Low, calm. You cannot hide him forever. His mother answered, I don't have to. He only needs to remember one thing. The memory shattered before Daniel could hear another word. He struggled to breathe. The man.
I've seen him before.
The little boy nodded.
You always have.
A sudden knock echoed beneath the floor. Not above, not at the door, from underneath the room. One knock, then another. The wooden floorboards trembled. Fine cracks slowly spread across the floor. The music box stopped playing. The room fell silent. The little boy stepped away from the cracks. His face had become pale.
It's waking up.
Daniel looked at him. What is?
Instead of answering, the boy pointed toward the old mirror hanging above the dresser. Daniel slowly turned. At first, he saw only his own reflection. Then another figure appeared behind him. Tall, motionless, wearing black gloves. Its face remained hidden. Daniel spun around. No one was there. He looked back at the mirror. The figure was still standing behind his reflection, watching, waiting. It slowly lifted one hand, then pointed toward the music box. The little boy's voice trembled. "Don't open it again." "But why?" "Because the last memory isn't inside it anymore." Daniel felt his heartbeat quicken. "Then where is it?" The boy looked directly into his eyes. His answer was barely louder than a whisper. "It's inside the guest who never checked out." At that exact moment, the mirror cracked from top to bottom, and from the other side of the broken glass, someone knocked back.
The knock came again, not from the room, not from the hallway, from the other side of the broken mirror. Daniel stood frozen. A thin crack stretched across the glass, then another. The reflection of the room slowly began to change. The old bed was gone. The bookshelf had disappeared. Even the blue curtains were missing. Instead, the mirror showed a much older version of room 317. Dust covered every surface. The wallpaper had peeled away. The ceiling was stained with water. It looked abandoned, as though no one had entered for decades. The little boy stepped away from the mirror. His breathing became slower. "You shouldn't look too long." Daniel kept staring. "Why?" "Because it slowly becomes real." The room suddenly grew silent. The music box remained closed. Even the ticking of the pocket watch had stopped. Then, someone appeared inside the reflection. A woman. She stood near the window. Her back faced Daniel. Her long coat moved gently, though there was no wind. Daniel whispered, "Mother?" The woman slowly raised one hand, not to wave, to warn him. She pointed toward the mirror, then slowly shook her head. "No," Daniel whispered. Before he could step closer, another figure entered the reflection. Tall, wearing black gloves. Its face remained hidden in darkness. The woman quickly stepped backward. The figure continued walking toward her. Daniel rushed to the mirror. "Stop!" His hand struck the glass. A sharp crack echoed through the room. The reflection vanished. Only his own frightened face remained. The little boy lowered his eyes. "You were never supposed to see that." Daniel turned. "Was that real?" The boy answered softly. "It already happened." Daniel felt a chill. "I couldn't help her." "No. But you can still remember her." The pocket watch suddenly ticked once. Its hands moved forward. 12:23. A warm light spread across the room. Another memory returned. Daniel was standing in the hotel lobby. He was only 6 years old. Rain dripped from his small coat. His mother knelt beside him. She held both of his hands. "Listen carefully. If we become separated, you must never leave room 317. The young Daniel nodded. His mother smiled. Then she placed the music box into his hands. The memory faded. Daniel slowly opened his eyes. "So she brought me here." The little boy nodded. "To protect you. From the man in black gloves?" The boy remained silent.
His silence answered everything. A deep sound echoed through the hotel. Not a bell, not a clock. It sounded like an old elevator beginning to move. The walls trembled gently. The guide's voice came from outside the room. "Daniel!" "It has reached this floor." The little boy looked toward the door. "We're out of time." The hallway outside became strangely bright. Golden light slipped beneath the door. Then, one by one, every light went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Only the cracked mirror remained visible. A new message slowly appeared across the broken glass. The letters formed by themselves. Room 317 was never your destination. It was your hiding place. Daniel stared at the words. His heartbeat echoed in the darkness. Then, from somewhere deep below the hotel, the old elevator stopped. Its doors slowly opened, and someone quietly stepped out.
Someone stepped out of the elevator. Daniel could not see their face. Only a long shadow stretched across the hallway. It moved slowly toward room 317. The guide stood between the shadow and the door. His golden lantern burned brighter than ever before. For a brief moment, the shadow stopped. The hotel became completely silent. No ticking, no wind, no music. The little boy looked at Daniel. "You have to remember now." "I don't know how." "You do. You've simply forgotten." The words settled heavily in the room. Daniel looked at the music box resting on the table. It had been with him from the beginning. His mother had protected it. The hotel had protected it. Perhaps it was never just a music box. Daniel reached for it. The little boy did not stop him. Instead, he quietly nodded. "This time, listen carefully." Daniel slowly lifted the lid. The familiar lullaby began once more. Soft, gentle, peaceful. But beneath the melody, another sound appeared. Rain. Heavy rain. Then the rumble of thunder. The room faded around him. Room 317 disappeared. Daniel found himself standing in the hotel lobby. Everything looked alive. The fireplace was burning. The old chandelier glowed warmly. Rain tapped softly against the tall windows. Guests walked through the lobby without making a sound. None of them looked at him. None of them seemed to notice he was there. Then he saw her, his mother. She stood near the front desk, holding his small hand. Daniel watched his younger self smiling peacefully. For the first time, he saw happiness instead of fear. "They were here together," he whispered. The memory continued. A man behind the reception desk looked toward Daniel's mother. He spoke quietly. "The room is ready." She nodded, but before she could answer, the front door of the hotel slowly opened. A cold wind swept across the lobby. Every guest stopped walking. Every conversation ended. Silence filled the room. A tall man entered. Black gloves, dark coat, his face hidden beneath the shadow of a wide hat. Daniel felt his heart sink. The man. His mother immediately pulled young Daniel behind her. She whispered, "Don't look at him." The stranger did not speak. He simply looked around the lobby, as though searching for someone. Then, he smiled. A slow, patient smile. The memory suddenly shook. The walls cracked. The chandelier flickered. Daniel heard the guide calling his name from far away. "Leave the memory. It's becoming unstable." The stranger slowly turned his head.
For the first time, he looked directly at Daniel. Not the child, the adult Daniel standing inside the memory, as though he could actually see him. Daniel stepped backward. That's impossible. The stranger lifted one gloved hand, then quietly pointed toward room 317. Without moving his lips, Daniel somehow heard his voice. You've remembered enough. The lobby dissolved into darkness. The music stopped. Daniel opened his eyes. He was back inside room 317. The music box had fallen silent. The little boy was gone. The guide stood in the doorway. His lantern had almost gone out. He looked at Daniel with quiet urgency. You've made a mistake. Daniel's heart pounded. What mistake? The guide glanced toward the hallway. His voice dropped to a whisper. You let him see you. At that exact moment, slow footsteps echoed outside room 317. Not approaching, already there. Then, 3 soft knocks came from the other side of the door. Knock, knock, knock. This time, Daniel knew exactly who was waiting.
The 3 knocks faded into silence. Daniel stood beside the door. This time, he wasn't afraid. The guide quietly lowered his lantern. You remember now. Daniel looked at the music box, then at the old wooden door. I do. He slowly opened it. The hallway outside was empty. No caretaker, no shadow, no man wearing black gloves. Only a long corridor filled with soft golden light. The rain had stopped. The hotel felt peaceful. For the first time, it no longer seemed alive with fear. Daniel stepped into the hallway. His mother was waiting. She smiled gently, just as she had in his childhood. You found your way. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I tried to remember. You did more than that. You accepted the truth. Daniel looked down. I couldn't save you. His mother slowly shook her head. It was never your responsibility. The weight inside his heart quietly disappeared. Years of guilt faded like morning mist. His mother reached into her pocket. She took out the small silver key. Room 317. She placed it in Daniel's hand. The room doesn't need you anymore. Daniel looked toward the door. Room 317 slowly closed by itself. The number on the door disappeared. Moments later, there was only a blank wooden door, as though the room had never existed. The guide smiled for the first time. The hotel has released your memory. Daniel looked around. The endless hallway was changing. The old wallpaper became new. The lamps glowed warmly. The clocks no longer ticked at different times. Every clock now showed the same peaceful hour. The midnight hotel was finally at rest. His mother took a small step backward. It is time for me to go. Daniel nodded slowly. This time, he did not ask her to stay. He simply smiled. Thank you. She smiled back. Then, like a fading reflection in calm water, she disappeared. The guide walked toward the hotel entrance. Morning light shone through the glass doors. For the first time, Daniel could see the world outside. Blue sky, fresh air, a new day. He stepped outside. When he turned for one last look, the midnight hotel was gone. Only an empty cliff overlooked the quiet sea. The wind carried one final sound, the gentle melody of a familiar music box. Daniel closed his eyes.
then smiled. Some memories are meant to be carried forever. Others only need to be remembered once. The end.